الامرأة المسلمية التي المثلية الجنسية مهمة جدا في العالم. هم في كل مكان في العالم، مثل الجامعة، مثل الحكومة، مثل السياسية، وهم مهمة جدا في المجموعة في العالم، في كل البلاد وفي كل ولايات. وهذا ممنوع وحرام في الإسلام.
At a young age, I've always been attracted to women. I didn't quite know what a lesbian was, but I never felt comfortable practicing Islam because I just didn't see myself within the mosque, or how could I be present and be comfortable with being who I am.
There are dynamics to our relationships to Muslim women together. There are dynamics that I think kind of go untalked about, like the beauty of being able to pray beside your partner. You know, and you're standing there shoulder to shoulder, you're standing there as a couple. To me, when we pray together, it feels like we are coming to God together.
I'm not a lesbian because I had bad experiences with men. You know, I love men. I've had nothing but wonderful relationships with men, you know, but I have never felt what I felt until I was with a woman. And I don't think that that's something that should be denied according to any religious philosophy.
My name is
Amina bint Abdul Jalil.
Kelly Wimes Taylor.
Fanta Anika Muhammad.
My name is Jelena Muhammad.
Tony Foster, but I go by Keeny.
I think that my story is a little bit different. So my name is Trina, and this is my partner Kim, and she is Christian.
Both of my parents are Muslim. My mother took Shahada, I think, in college, and my dad took Shahada somewhere in Vietnam, and then came back and got married, and hey, it's me. So I was raised Muslim, mostly by my mom because my parents split when I was 7.
Well, my parents joined the Nation of Islam in the 70s, and they actually joined with my siblings. And at that time, as they transitioned into the Nation of Islam, they also changed their last name, but my parents changed their entire name. And when I was born in the 80s, I was actually the only one born into the Nation of Islam.
Reintroduction to Islam is actually my current partner. And so there was a lot of bonding moments between us there. One memory that often comes to mind was the first time that she actually took me to the masjid to pray. And I was super nervous, I was shaking. And she kind of reached over and grabbed my hand to give me comfort. So that's a thought that often comes to mind.
Very recently, I was actually in a relationship with a Muslim woman. And so even though I was familiar with Islam before just generally speaking, kind of what you learned, and I have family members who are Muslim, I think she was kind of my intimate connection with the religion, so it was really through her this year.
Through my parents. My father started off in the Nation of Islam when they called it the Final Call days, which was in the mid-'80s, I believe. And my mother was still kind of in the church, but because they were together, they weren't married at the time, she was kind of transitioning. So she was going to the mosque somewhat, always at PTAs, and just very supportive. But she wasn't an active member in the Nation of Islam at the particular time. So my father would pretty much usher Islam into my life. And then, I think it was just kind of an organic experience. I think it was something that I connected with at birth. So, yeah.
For me, in high school especially, there was always this assumption amongst my peers that I was gay. And so I felt like I spent 4 years just trying to, like, I guess, present otherwise. Because I was kind of a nerdy, kind of awkward teenager, so I really didn't know much about my own sexuality one way or the other. And so college was kind of a safe place to kind of see other people and see that you don't have to be this cookie cutter person. And then it's like once I kind of was born in my own sexuality and started to talk to other people that I did go to school with who've also kind of grown up and matured, you realize that you kind of was not really alone at all. Like this, it was really nothing to be kind of in the closet about or ashamed about. But growing up, it just seemed like, okay, like this is how I should be, so let me just go and be that.
It was not a topic that was ever discussed when I was growing up. The first conversation I had with my mom about it, I was 16, and I was like, I don't really feel those feelings to guys that, like, I don't, and she really just, she was like, well, after all that you've been through, I had an older brother who couldn't keep his hands to himself, or other body parts, and some other violence kind of thing. And she was like, well, if you don't push through that, then you let the bad guys win, essentially. And so, then it was and if you decide to, not deal with men at all, then how will you have any kids, and what kind of mom will you be, what kind of Muslim will you be? Because you can't. Yeah, there's no, you can't. It's either men or nothing.
I didn't know much. I didn't know anyone that was gay or lesbian. However, I was always attracted to women, to girls, but I thought that it was normal, and I didn't consider myself or feel like I was odd for having those feelings, and no one ever told me or spoke to me about it. So, my reality wasn't that it was a negative thing or that it was wrong to be this way or to have those thoughts. So I just thought it was okay.
It didn't really even enter my mind until high school. So even though I was raised in the church, I don't remember much discussion of homosexuality on any level, good or bad, until I became involved with a woman. And then I think kind of my antenna were up, and so then I noticed things. But before high school, really nothing.
My exposure initially came from a cousin of mine, and he is, of course, gay, and of course, just seeing all of the homosexual things on television and reading about it. I'm kind of a book buff, so just reading about different things and I don't know, just living, really. Being in Chicago, it's kind of a segregated town. So it's like the north side of Chicago, you kind of have like a gay scene. You have like, a Mexican scene, an Italian scene. It's very segregated. So me being in Chicago and kind of being exposed to a lot of different groups, my parents always have me active in different things. I got exposed to homosexuality really just going downtown a lot, just meeting different people. And my cousin, and just as I got older in high school, I was just exposed to a vast array of males and females that were that was homosexual. Also in the Nation of Islam as well, to not mention any particular names, but I knew that it was homosexuals in the Nation of Islam as well. I think it was more of kind of fighting to not be that way, but I definitely could sense the difference in certain individuals.
The question of identity is always a rough spot for me, because I guess I honestly feel that I didn't get a lot of time to kind of develop that. There's so many identities and sub-identities in the LGBT community that right now is just kind of like, I think the term I use most often is lesbian. I'm pretty sure that, you know, my sexual attraction is to women, and exclusively so. But it was just kind of or for me, I fell in love with this woman, and then it was just kind of like I had to choose. And so for me, I kind of feel like I didn't really get a chance to really kind of build and put a real kind of label that I feel like is mine to my identity. I feel like I just kind of went through the labels I had to choose from. I was like, this seems most accurate, so I'll go with that.
I think the best word would be lesbian. And I just say it like that because there were some very hurtful, violent things, you know, that I experienced towards the end of my last marriage that just made me really kind of reluctant to pick up anything. But to be fair, I've been dating the word lesbian since I was 16. It was too long. It didn't sound as nice or succinct as gay or queer. And it's just, you know, in the world of abbreviations, can we shrink that up a little bit, or, you know, so as far as how I identify, I think lesbian is the most accurate, but I'm not a fan. I don't like the way the word sounds.
I don't identify at all. I don't confine myself to a label. However, social identities, I get identified as a stud. I've been identified as aggressive, tomboy, however you want to put it. However, I don't label myself or confine myself. I do feel like oftentimes women of color get trapped in roles, and that's not something that I would like to get trapped in. So therefore, I'm me.
It's broader than my attraction. I think that it has everything to do with how I was raised, and I was raised essentially with men in the with men not in the picture. And if a man were in the picture, he wasn't really doing much of anything anyway. So I just very much came up with the idea that women handle it all anyway. Kind of, what do you need a man for? And then when my first intimate relationship was with a woman, that kind of drove it home. I was married to a man through my 20s, and that actually just kind of confirmed it, where maybe that wasn't supposed to be the point, but it actually confirmed it. And so I think that coming out of that marriage definitely didn't, it just made me kind of appreciate women kind of in their various identities in all levels, and in whatever level I would interact with them. And I think that that's what lesbian means to me. It doesn't mean necessarily I only sleep with women. It's just kind of more broadly defined. So
as a lesbian, definitely only date women, have really no desire to date men, and that just comes from a transitional period. It's not like I've had amazing relationships with men also, you know, amazing. So it's not from a bitter place. It's not from a place of just like, oh, I don't, I've been done dirty or anything like that. I don't want to talk to men. It's just I love women, and that feeling just supersedes anything that I've ever experienced with a man. So
I think the one thing that I want people to walk away knowing is that there is no monolithic identity on either end. There is no kind of gingerbread man cookie cutout of what Muslims should look like and what LGBT people will look like.
I would like viewers to know that it does exist. I think oftentimes we get caught up in roles and identities and how Muslim women should be seen, but I would like them to know who we are, and that we don't just confine ourselves to a box of how others may see us, but we're more than that, and I would like for viewers to see us and to see who we are and to allow us to be transparent in our truth.
I think that also kind of in the queer community, people will talk day and night, all up and down, about goddesses, about meditating, about being spiritual and all this kind of stuff. But as far as a connection with God, like capital G God, we don't really talk about that. And I think that also has to do with a lot of pain that we've endured in religious communities. But I'm also okay with saying, okay, there's this part of my life, and I am queer, of course, but there's also this part of my life that, after all these years, recognizes that I really do need a capital G God in my life. And I need to be okay with both, and being both, and saying both, and doing both. And so Islam is the way that it has, at this point, manifested in my life. Who knows what's going to happen in 20 years from now with anything, if I live that long, inshallah. But right now, this is what it is. So.
I don't know. I just want people to get to know me. If you see me, talk to me, ask me any questions, support the project. It's so much bigger than me. And yeah, that's it. I'm an open person. If anyone has any questions or anything like that, other than that, man, just stay positive and support any type of project like this that's looking to uplift the community and raise awareness for everyone. But me, yeah, just, hey, my name's Fanta. That's about it. Yeah.
When I was really, really feeling lost, there was one person on the planet that I knew of who identified as Muslim and lesbian. And she was a friend of a friend on Facebook, and so I sent her this long email, like, you don't know me, but, and her openness and her receptiveness really helped me, because it's only so many times you can have people try to choke you out, or really, really hurt you, or really threaten to take away your family and your kids, before you start to really believe that, okay, maybe I am one of those hell-bound people, and maybe I should just not even deal with it anymore. And if I can do any If I can do anything to help if I can do anything to help somebody not feel that, anything, then I will do it, And I, just wherever I need to be, or however I need to be there, because it's a terrible feeling to feel that alone. And then when you add the religious layer on top, there are so many people who just walk away from religion, period, or they were, and especially Islam, because I thought that I was the only one.
There was a story on Michelle and Cello, and it said Muslim lesbian mother, and I almost fell out my chair. Like I was like, "Whoa! I've never seen these words together ever in my life!" Whoa! So the first time I got to like meet her, and a friend of mine like took me to meet her, we were in the room, and I almost like sat on the floor by the bed, like, "Tell me." Tell me all your stories. And she was just like, "You're weird." I'm a little freaked out. But like you said, like I was totally like, oh my gosh. Like not only somebody who can identify with that experience, but is visible. And so many times you just feel like you're the only one, like you're completely invisible. Yeah. And then when we were doing You People, shooting You People, and that's a documentary on the making of a music video by this artist Hanifa Walida. And we were on set, and somebody said something Muslimy, and we were like, "What?" You too? And there might have been 4 of us, but we made circles. We were like hugging each other. We were so excited because we had never been in a room with 4 of us. The woman who was directing our workshops was talking about the death threats that she gets from her family and like all of the kind of stuff that she has to endure. Not even to be out. She wasn't out. She was outed. Like somebody called her family and was like, "Get your girl. Did you know?" Get your girl. And so, right. And when we started doing Aziza, we were keenly aware that as Black women in America, we now have a position of privilege to tell this story that a lot of other women would not have. And just as our struggle has been used to, promote liberty in other places, like this is still a frontier that hasn't been covered. And so we would have to be the ones to kind of, we're the ones who can be on camera. We're the ones who can put our name on the and not have to be afraid of like dishonoring the family and having to cleanse the community. Like we don't have all of that. A lot of us are first or second, maybe at best generation. And so we don't really have that much pressure. And so then we would be the ones who would have the ability to kind of bring it up so that other people can.
When I was dating a Muslim woman at the time that was kind of out and not out and out and not out, and of course me, I'm like out all the time. I'm like, what's the problem? And so she was like, no, you don't understand. There are no queer Muslims. I'm like, yes, there are. No, they're not. I've been looking for years. And I said, just sit there, sit right there. Got my laptop. And went, Muslim, progressive. And I just looked at her like I wasn't even looking at the screen. And PV popped up. I'm like, looks like they have services on Friday. We can go. How'd you do that?
It didn't dawn on me to actually reach out to you, because in my head it was like, yeah, but she probably like, because we hear so much about people reaching out to openly queer Muslim in a bad light. Like, I'm gonna kill you.
That's right.
I'm gonna burn your house down.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't want to do that. So then when we went to, for her birthday, one of her friends took us to the No Hate shoot.
Yeah, photo shoot.
Yeah, and I was like,
Yes.
that was like a big deal for me. So somebody who's not just Muslim, not just out, but Muslim and out
And physically out, not just like
and
person that
alive,
exists,
not like an apparition.
And
You know,
positive in the world.
right, and actually out and doing stuff and vocal and visible and seen. So that was like I literally had to like catch my. I couldn't talk to you.
yes, you
I
were
was
pretty.
status.
You were
Like,
you were
I
pretty
met
struggling
Red
to
Summer.
talk that night.
Yeah.
I think at one point Red was even like, "I'm gonna leave so you can get your stuff together."
yeah. Well, I mean, like, but for me, like sometimes I said when you were gonna get Terry, I was like, this is a huge deal for me because I've been in Atlanta for 20 years, and 20 years, and I was 18. And I was trying to find, I would like call little numbers from the Southern Voice magazine that'd be stuck in under my sheet music.
Aww.
I'm the only one. This lady said, no, you're not. And I was like, and I kind of went back and forth. I was like, I live in College Park, I live in the projects in College Park. We're like the only Muslim family, so you're not going to tell me that I'm not the only queer Muslim. You're not going to tell me that.
Yeah.
And I ended up hanging up anyway. So it's a longer version of the story I told you guys earlier. But so it's like, I didn't know. So this, like, I was like, there's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7. Woo! Well, because it was, you want these things, and you want to be able to be 100% in a space, but where are those spaces? So.
It was real suspect in the beginning, trying to see who was interested and pull people in, because even the girls that were on the thread initially, of all of the everybody was like, yeah, do it, yeah.
Don't put me in it.
Like when it came down to it, silence.
It's not often that people will trust you, especially when you start to compound things like race and sexuality enough to say, hey, you're welcome in my house. So we're not meeting in some coffee shop somewhere.
Right, so nobody can follow me home.
You know what I mean? So it's like, And then when Red was like, help yourself, the kitchen, I was like.
And then you left? Girl.
I was like, so we're really gonna do that building thing. So everybody was serious. I was like,
okay, I can. Did anyone feel any reservations?
I did after the fact.
After the fact?
After the fact. And as big of a mouth as I have, I did. Because it was when Terry asked, are you ready for the conversation that's going to happen after this? Because this West End, this is my Atlanta home. So the masjid, walking distance over here, I know. I know that community. I know that community. I've been in and out of that community. There's an imam over there who's part of my past. It's not a very pleasant one, but beside the point, this is my home. So that conversation that Terry was talking about, I was like, ooh, we talking about home. And so that it kind of panicked, but then it was all that took place, pretty quickly, because then it was like, where they at? Because then I saw the trailer, and I was like, okay, boom.
There's
I
other
know
people.
you, and then I saw you, and I was like, there's 2 more I haven't met. But because I was alone in the woods, it's like, where we at? So I clung to her, to Kini. Well, we clung, but then as queer Muslim, we knew each other. And then you, and then you, and I keep revisiting that because it's so, I'm 36 years old, and we're talking about 18 years, and I'm asking for like rows and rows and rows and buildings. I was asking for somebody else. So I wouldn't feel so bad. So this is a big deal for me. I mean, we can even add the conversation with Dr. Love, that black girl that I was, that wasn't this enough or wasn't that enough or was too this or too much that, didn't have home. And this is, I kid you not, I feel like I can finally put my feet down. So, excuse me, I'm sorry. Just
No.
Apologize.
Yeah, you don't have to.
18 years to get here, you know, so.
I was raised Christian. I came to Islam 7 years ago. And when I was a Christian, I was a dedicated, progressive Christian. I understood it as a political identity. And so I think my expectations were, as a Muslim, that I was like, oh, where the queer Muslims at, you know? But a lot of, I felt like I wasn't connected because I traveled a lot, because I was an archaeologist for 10 years. And so I was living in hotels and moving from place to place to place. And I figured it's just because I'm not on my feet. I'm like, I really live kind of airport to airport. And then when I came to grad school in Atlanta, I was like, oh, I'll connect, you know, with the masjid and have, you know, people, there'll be some kind of family there. Much to my dismay, I didn't find that. You know, I thought, you know, I'm really close to a predominantly African American Caribbean masjid in Eastlake, a part of Atlanta, and I couldn't walk into there as 100% of myself. And so I labored back when I guess I didn't use Facebook, but labored online, trying to find a group, trying to find somewhere to be in community, because theology is really important to me. So part of what threw me off about that community is like, I need to be able to talk about these things. Why do I have to sit behind these men? Is anybody having a conversation about why we're separated by gender, and what do we do? And like, of course, this is a great place for a person who's same gender loving, because there's so many single gender species, you know? This is awesome. It works well for me, but you know, so I'm like, you know, trying to figure out the eye contacts, you know? That's happening while we performing voodoo, you know? Yeah, you got pretty toes. Like, and I'm just like, we just were not having that conversation, and ultimately, I stopped going, because I'm like, I want to come because prayer and community, like communal prayer, just has this extra energy to it, you know? And I missed that corporate feeling, especially because I was by myself, right? When I was traveling so much. But I couldn't get other things that I needed in community. And so I kind of floated for a while. I visited a few other masjids. I went to some Christian services, because I'm like from Pentecostal, like the church shaking, you can see the ground through the floor, wood, you know, like real country church. And I just missed that kind of the visceral worship, you know. Let's have these conversations. This is what we've been missing in the community, like open, safe places to have a conversation. If somebody is transgendered, where do they pray? You know, like these are the conversations, because my background is in peace and justice activism in religious communities, right? And I'm like, come on, we talk about these things being important to us, but we the last ones on the train when it comes to giving people their rights. When it comes to seeing, you know, how we're oppressing folks, religious people be the last one on the train, but we always want to be the first ones on the train to heaven. Like, because Muslim progressive values is mostly European American converts or South Asian Muslims, and there's just this piece of African American existence that they don't understand, right? Some of the South Asians kind of get it post 9/11, you know, when they became niggas to people. Like, you ain't right, you know, and so, but it's still that consciousness is still not there. And so the ability to have conversations about all of these social identities with some of the encoded language and culture already there, so we don't have to explain what we do, you know. Silly, and then you don't have to explain it.
Right.
You know?
There was this movie called The Color Purple.
And like I recognize, I don't want to treat being African American like it's a monolith, but there are some things that we there's some cultural things that we have in common, and there's some cultural, I think that you were saying before, there's some ways that we navigate in society that make us uniquely able to speak to stuff, to bring a moral conscience to stuff that other people have not been able to do successfully. If they've been trying to do it, I don't know. You know, but haven't been able to do it successfully because they bought into the American dream, right? And they think it's for them. And we have not been under that illusion for a really long time. And so we can talk about things, or we can call it for what it is. And I think it's important for African American communities, I say African Americans, but Black people generally, to do that and put our finger on it and kind of hold up a standard and say, don't get fooled. You know, don't get fooled by something we've been on this in this cycle for a while. And Muslim community, we need that too. Because the world is a changing, you know, with globalization, 20 years old, the world is a changing.
Something shifted internationally in a lot of the places that I used to go, where I can go and be Black, I can go and be American, I can go and be a woman, I can go and be a Muslim, but I cannot go and be a lesbian. And that honestly has frozen me in a lot of ways. Like, I have to know what their politics are on homosexuality for my safety, like my life, before I go somewhere. My sister had a film that was out for South African Pride. When I tell you, I was home praying that every day that she was there, like knowing what's happening. Still understanding that as American women, we have this kind of protection when we travel a little bit. Nobody want to mess with the embassy, you know. But what really are they going to do if my little Black tail come up missing? I'm not jumping in. Nobody, and really, if my community is not making a fuss about it, then nobody's gonna even know. I'm like moving throughout all of those spaces, balancing all of those identities, and like someone was saying, like being in a space where I can bring all of those to the table, because I left the mosque, and I don't know if I felt like I was gonna walk in and there was gonna be a neon light shining around me and the children would be exiled. I don't know what I thought was gonna happen, but I just could not manage it. Emotionally, I couldn't even take the possibility, because I grew up in Mosque number 2, where Fanta was, and my husband was a minister. There was a lot that I was doing, and I did not want to have the questions. I didn't want to have the stare. I didn't want to have any of that. I just couldn't. And having the children asking to go, and knowing that I would not take them, that I could not take them for that, was a big weight for a long time. Like I couldn't even really explain to him why, And so I know what it's like, and a lot of the stories were like, well, my father was Muslim, then my parents split, and then I was kind of left out, like I know what that is, when the person who's really giving you that foundation, you're not together, then you don't really get to go anymore. Same thing happened with friends that I grew up with, their oldest sister was the only one who was old enough to know how to make salat when their parents divorced. And so the rest of us in the house would just watch her, like, wow. what is she saying? You know, we want to know so bad. And knowing that I had to like seek that out for myself, like seek Islam myself, and then to feel like I couldn't go anymore. That was just.
I went through a disenfranchising period within Islam, particularly with the masjid, the structure of the masjid, because they have a lot of them, not all, but a lot have those barriers between the men and women that if you really want to get down to the brass tacks of Islam, should not be there. But they're there because of other cultural influences and because of the slow morphing of the Islamic scholarship through the Dark Ages and, things like this to compete with the other running religions at the time. So, there's a lot of stuff that's in the masjid that should not be there. And the people that want to be in the masjid are oftentimes kept out of those spaces. So I went through a very rough period when I was really butting heads with some of the imams. One of them was my husband at the time. And it's like, we can't keep doing this. You can't say sisters, come to the masjid for the events to cook, but then your door to get to the masjid, you might get mugged. You gotta go to the service. You gotta go through the back. It's not well lit. The stairs are jagged, or it's upstairs / downstairs, and you can't see what's going on. So there is a built-in disenfranchisement that for me, I was raised Orthodox Sunni Muslim, if you want to, what sect you claim, right? But that's what I was raised. That's how I was raised, and so it was very heartbreaking for me to go to these events and not. And we're not even talking about sexuality. I'm talking about just as a woman to go to these places, and I can't go, or I can't go in, or I can't partake in the discussion. I can't ask a question. I have to send a note up, and if you get through the pile of notes, sister, do you have a pencil? Write it on a napkin. The imam ball it up. He didn't know what it was, kind of thing. So you see, for me growing up, seeing those things, and then I messed around and started reading some female Islamic scholarship, and it just all went to pot at that point. Because then I'm forever bucking this. I'm not naturally. I don't consider myself a rebellious person, but at some point, But I am somebody who tries to do right and tries to be balanced. And as a mother of daughters, and I have a queer daughter, I'm like, y'all get this together now, because my children are going to be here. And not just my children, but our, you know what I mean? And so on and on like that. So that's heartbreaking to not have those spaces, like you said. The religious communities are the last one. The first one to be like, Allah loves everybody. No, brother. We can't get what you want that man.
And I've always been rebellious. That's just been me. That's always been my spirit. Even when I was an active member in the mosque, I always had this kind of like, Fanta, she's in the mosque, but she's gonna do things this way. I've always had kind of the inquisitive spirit. I've never been one to just take information that my parents or anyone bestows upon me and just run with it and just salute it and just say, okay, that's fine. When I went to college in Tuskegee University, it was my first time going to an Episcopalian church. And I went to, it was interesting. It was interesting.
You're gonna say good things.
It was interesting. No. The energy, what I love about a lot of, whether it's a Baptist church or just a lot of churches, period, is that it's such a high energy. We, in the Nation of Islam, it's such a militance and a seriousness that sometimes that scares our people away because they don't know how to relate to the discipline. Because we're not a disciplined people, at least not as of right now. When I went to this Episcopalian church, it was funny because one of my close friends, she was like, yeah, I know you're in the mosque. And this was my freshman year of college. And this was a time where I was still an active member in the Nation of Islam. I was doing speeches and writing the final call and all types of stuff. And I was like, sure, because my thing I wanted to emphasize to a lot of my friends is that I'm not afraid to learn anything about any religion. You understand what I'm saying? Like, what I am is it's gonna stick with me regardless. You know, whether I choose to go to the mosque every day, it doesn't matter. When you know Islam or anything that you feel a strong connection to, you can't run from it. You understand what I'm saying? You're accountable for what you know. So I went to the church and stood up. We start praying, and this sister starts speaking in tongues. So I had my Bible. I'm like, what language is she speaking? So I asked her, I'm like, what language is this? And my friend looked at me like, you don't know? Like, she's speaking in tongues. That's blasphemy for you to even be asking me that. I'm like, yo, I really don't know what she's saying. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. That's it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what is this? I read the Bible. I don't see it. I don't see it. So that was interesting. And then after my sophomore year of college, I just had a disconnect. And this was even before, well, a little bit after that. That's when I fell in love with a woman. But I just felt a disconnect because of certain things that I wanted to do as an individual that wasn't necessarily a cohesive unit in as far as the rules in Islam. And me being the rebellious person that I am, I just was just like, I just don't want to live like that. Like, I don't want to live with someone else dictating certain things, or I feel bad because I didn't do certain things, or just I didn't want to feel disconnected because I wanted to be an individual. And of course I fell in love with a woman, and my ideas really just steadily changed. Like, I just felt as though it's okay. In order for me to feel like, because I had, I tell people this all the time, I'm not a lesbian because I had bad experiences with men. I love men. I've had nothing but wonderful relationships with men, but I have never felt what I felt until I was with a woman. And I don't think that that's something that should be denied according to any religious philosophy, in my opinion. So yeah, I go to the mosque, but it's not frequent like I used to. I'm more, and I hate to say this because it's become so cliche, I'm more spiritual, but I don't feel as though that I have to, that my religion has to be in the four walls of any masjid. I think that I can be just as righteous of a sister in the mosque or outside of the mosque, as long as I do what I have to do to love, respect, and just be righteous to the people in the community. Just spread information and love. I don't necessarily consider myself a Muslim now, but I don't forsake Islam at all, and it's not going anywhere. So yeah, that's my short story.
You never know through what doors people will walk into your faith, and Islam is very much in my heart. The things that I was raised to believe were fundamental parts of it, I'm coming to find were not. They're more cultural. So even down to what hijab is and when you wear it and how you wear it, these are things that the Arab culture has been superimposed over the Islamic tenets. So then when somebody's asking about what kind of things we're going to do for our wedding, so we're going to have a Islamic ceremony. Okay, well, what's that mean? Basically, we have a contract and some witnesses. That's it. Right? That's it. Anything else, you can bring your own thing into it. So hopefully, and I know I'm all over the place, but I'm telling you, my mind is just like, I can connect, I can relate. I'm here. Hopefully, even just us doing this is a step, because we are part of the religious community, and so in us doing this and making these moves, and inshallah, the people come around, and be able to do it. Because like you said, we have a privilege, because we can go home. We can go home.
You know, how did we have reservations after? Actually, I did, and it was more so with my dad. Like, okay, how is my dad going to look at this, and how will he see me after? And although my dad knows about me, and I'm out to my father, and you know, he told me he didn't agree, however, he'll love me regardless. You know, I do feel like it's still a work in progress, so to speak, with him. And I don't consider myself to be Muslim. I do consider myself to be spiritual. I do feel like that's for me to determine how I practice in the relationship that I choose to have with Allah, and what that looks like for us. And you know, it really is a sigh of relief to be amongst other Muslim women, because that is something that has been missing, especially queer women, because it definitely is, like, I know I've detached in so many ways because I felt lost and I felt misplaced. So, I'm proud to be amongst all of you. I really am.
I think so many of the reservations that I hear, I reflect them when I came out as a queer person. But that ship sailed like 70 years or longer before I became Muslim, so the ship had already sailed a little bit. But the same kind of reservations that I had about coming out, it wasn't about God. Like, it was about people. It was about my community. And so much of our trepidation, community is important, but so much of our trepidation is about other people and not about how we're connected in the universe, and not about our devotion to God. And I think it's important that we remember there's a difference, right? There's a difference between our other folks don't define our spirituality. Ain't nobody else taking in our prayer, right? That ain't for nobody else, you know. And as much as it's important for us to be in community, that's very important. But there is this realm that's not, where community doesn't have jurisdiction, right? And so we can pray anywhere and be heard and be pointed all kinds of directions, right? Or be laying down, looking up in the sky, you know, like, and there is a lot, you know, as close as to our jugular vein, right? And so I think it's important, particularly for people who've been disenfranchised in all kinds of ways, to remember that the closeness of Allah to us, and that our spirituality is legitimate and it's valid, and it's just as, it's not superior to other people's, but it's just as good, whether we're sitting in a masjid, in the front or the back, behind curtains, or we outside or not.
I think one of the key things that was interesting in a lot of the questionnaires that I did get back, so many women had never been in a space with other queer Muslim women. So many women have never had an opportunity to date another Muslim woman. They were like, wait, it's some I can date? I didn't even know. Where they at? Or never even considered it because of how we felt individually. We definitely wouldn't want to go share that with somebody, you know? And then you hear that somebody else did, and you're like, wait, how? Where'd you find her? So, like, having all of these conversations, all of this stuff come up and come out has been like healing, cathartic. It's been like wow moments all the time, like things I did think, but I'm having to remember because I didn't even know, you know, I hadn't thought about it in so long that I felt that way. And looking at a lot of the differences and a lot of the similarities of the women that I've been talking to and that Tia's been talking to and Terry's been talking to and you all have been talking to, as a result of it, it's just really branching out and spreading out in a way that's really nice.
But I would think to a certain extent, like if you're talking about kind of that truth and understanding where you are and where yourself, that's a very,
you're far along in your journey anyway, if you can be honest with yourself. And I just think that a lot of people use religion to not be honest with it. Like, it's easier. And then once you've invested so much in that religion and you've invested so much in hiding yourself, then yes, you're going to get virulent with it. You're going to get ugly. You're going to hit other people with it, because then it is a tool. You're projecting. And I think that it's wonderful that we are part of this group, and it's wonderful that we are at a place, wherever we are, that we can be honest with ourselves, because that is the hardest thing, right? And so when you asked first about kind of reservations, I'm similar to Trina in that I came to Islam after I came out. But coming out for me was such a journey and such a fighting, that when I got involved with a Muslim woman, and she was saying, you're not even Muslim, but you act Muslim in all of these ways. And I'm like, well, that's just loving God. I don't understand. Like, I don't, like, this is actually what I learned through Christianity, which I let go. And so, and then, you know, she's like, well, you know, in Islam we do this. I'm like, yeah, it's in Christianity. Well, in Islam we do this. It's kind of Christian. That's not Christian. And so, like, that conversation kept on happening so much that when she was saying, because she's Muslim and East African, that she was like, well, it's also just very dangerous to be queer in my community, because you can run into the wrong people that find out that you are, and they will come and get you. And in my mind, I'm like, I have had to fight so long for my truth. I'm out everywhere. I'm a teacher. I'm out there, because it's like, I fought for this. So you're going to know who I am. So when she's like, they might come and get me, and I'm like, what if you're at my house? Are they gonna get me too? And my kids? Are they just gonna come and get us? She's like, I never thought of that. And I was like, all right, so then what do we have to do? Do we have to get a gun? Because in my mind, and I was like, okay, well, we'll just get armed. Because I'm like, no one's gonna take this from me.
And then when my first girlfriend was just like, boom, and I was just like, oh God, what is this? I don't know what this is like. This is different. This is weird, and it's real. So I think that it's more so of a personal journey that people have to just be open and honest with themselves to say it's okay. And that was my primary reason for why I wanted to be a part of the project, because I wanted to shine light to other individuals, other youth primarily, to say it's okay. Because I know a lot of young Muslim women who just don't think that it's okay. So, you know, I just wanted to shine light on that and just be like, okay, you know, look at me. I know a lot of y'all grew up with me, and you know how crazy Fanta is or whatever, and just say, it's all right. You know, love yourself. It's cool. So, you know, like I said, and again, that contradiction, I think that a lot of people feel guilt, you know, from other people bearing it on them, but they're living with their own sin and their own problems. You know, not saying, because I don't think it's a sin. I think it's beautiful, you know, and being who I am. But a lot of people try to place that burden on them, you know, and it's really a self-righteous spirit, which I think is so ugly, because I don't think that we can really make any transformation as far as moving our people or trying to get our people to just seek some type of real knowledge if we're bombarding them with what we think is our truth, our personal truth. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Love my Jehovah's Witness family, but you know, you can't force feed me what you believe. You understand what I'm saying? And that's anybody. A lot of you know, Muslims, as far as in the Nation of Islam, will try to throw a final call in your car. You're like, all right, brother, I got that edition already. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? You can't. I just don't think we should be like that. I think that we should lead by example and just be good and positive to each other, and not try to, you know, put each other's you know, discretions or whatever it is that we have, you know, on blast. So yeah.
Questions that you have not asked that I wish you'd asked. Why did I want to wear my scarf? And I wanted to wear it because I constantly, even in the realm where people will say that there's no conflict, you still see it. Because when people see hijab, they know, okay, that's a Muslim woman. Unless it's some of the crazy people I work with, but that's another story. So when you see hijab, you know that's a Muslim woman, and I think it's important for people to know and to see that, yes, you can not just be, oh yeah, I'm Muslim, but you can be visually Muslim and visually, or maybe visibly is a better word, visibly Muslim and visibly some rainbow identity. I remember I've had conversations in the past with people who were close friends but aren't so much now. You know, one of my friends told me that she ever saw me holding hands with somebody, with another woman, while I was wearing a scarf, and she would take my scarf off. And I was like, okay, so our relationship is gonna do like this then. Because there are times when I'm with my partner and I'll have my hijab on and we'll be out somewhere, and it's like, take my scarf if you want to. You know, but it is a big part of me. I've worked hard. I've had to make peace with hijab myself. I don't do it for anybody else. I wear it sometimes, sometimes I won't, you know. Or I'll wear it different ways, you know, but it's part of my reality. And I think that it's important to have some sort of visibility in both spaces, coming out Muslim in the queer community and coming out queer in the Muslim community, you know. So I feel like it's important to me, so I just want to say that out loud.
Various